Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be making some slow cooker oats. These are awesome. They're so simple to make. It's slow cooker oatmeal. Very easy to make. Very customizable in terms of the recipe you use. Now I am going off of a specific recipe that I will attach in the description, but I'm also making some alterations to the recipes. So just kind of follow along and you'll have a delicious crock pot of oatmeal by the end of it. So for starters, what we're going to do is just prep our crock pot. So this is just the bare insert. You can always use a crock pot liner if you have one, but I am just going to prep the crock pot with a tiny bit of olive oil, just the smallest amount. If you have butter, if you want to use like vegetable oil, you can do that. This is just to kind of prevent the sticking of the oatmeal as it cooks. So I just pour some on a napkin and do a very light coating to help prevent sticking. Now I will say, as it cooks, you do stir it, so that helps prevent it too, but this is also just helpful if you are trying to start it up maybe overnight and don't want to worry about having to stir it. So now that I have the crock pot itself prepped, we can start with adding the ingredients. It is so simple. There is no actual prep for the ingredients themselves other than the apples that I chopped up. So very simple. You just throw it all in and let it cook. It's awesome. So the recipe does call for 2 cups of steel cut oats. I only have old-fashioned rolled oats. This essentially just means that they are going to cook down quicker than the steel cut would. So feel free to use whichever you prefer. I am going to adjust the time that I spend having these cook because they are steel, or because they are rolled instead, instead of steel cut, but feel free to follow the recipe exactly if you wish. So I am just skipping the first cup. And mind you, I don't have the crock pot on right now. I'll turn it on at the end. So there's cup number 1. And then I'm going to try and make my life a little bit easier here and just pour this in. Perfect. So that's about 2 cups of oats. I might do a smidge extra just to make a little bit more. Perfect. Now the next step is going to be putting in our pumpkin puree, and I'm also going to go ahead and add in our water and milk. So I have an entire can of pumpkin. Now this recipe is a pumpkin pear recipe essentially. It's pumpkin oatmeal with pears. So I'm doing pumpkin oatmeal with apples. So very similar. You can substitute the fruit if you wish. I just didn't have pears on hand, so this is a good way for me to use up my apples. So I'm just going to get my can of pumpkin open. This is perfect for the fall and winter. Pumpkin is good for you. It adds good flavor to it as well, so it's a great addition. Let me not cut myself on this can. Okay, so we're just going to dump this in. It is being a little bit stubborn, so I might need to give it some help coming out. Myself on the lid, so I'm leaving it there because it doesn't really want to come off, but it is is making it kind of hard to get the pumpkin out. There we go. Sorry, you can hear me vigorously shaking the cane through the microphone. Hopefully not, but. We'll call that good enough. So I am going to rinse off my spoon real quick. Because that is my spoon for spices. Okay, so next we are going to go ahead and add in our milk and our water. So we want to do 2 cups of milk. I just have whole milk here. So here's 1, and I might have just enough. And 2, perfect. So add in our milk, and then this calls for 6 cups of water. So I am just going to head over to the sink. One, 2, 3, and 6. Perfect. Now this is going to be pretty full. I'll be honest, I don't know how big our crock pot is. I think it might be a 4-quart, and I think this recipe is designed for more of a 6-quart, but we are going to follow the recipe exactly in terms of ratios because we really love oatmeal and we'll definitely eat it all. So I'm going to go ahead and start stirring this just to get mainly the pumpkin incorporated. So just going to give this a stir. And honestly, with the amount of liquid, I'm thinking I'm going to add more oats. I might regret it later, but it just seems like because the recipe called for steel cut oats, this is a lot of liquid for this amount of oats. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert steel cut oats to rolled oats. So what I'm going to do is just add some more. Honestly, just gonna add the rest of my container. So I just feel like this is too much liquid for them. And we'll see as they set up. I can always pour some liquid off if I need to. But this is just a lot of liquid for these oats. Can always pour some off. And the apples will help too. Okay, so now we're gonna do some spices. So the recipe that we're using calls for cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, cloves, salt, and vanilla. I don't have any vanilla, I'm out, so I'm not gonna be using vanilla. Now I measure with my heart when it comes to seasonings, I will be honest. For the cloves, it does say 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I'm just gonna spoon out like a tiny, tiny bit because I know that cloves can be kind of overpowering. So just a tiny bit of cloves, but it says to do 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves, 1/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm just gonna do a little bit on my spoon, but feel free to be exact if you choose. 1/4 a teaspoon kosher salt, and then 1/4 a teaspoon nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon ginger, 1.5 teaspoons cinnamon. So we're just gonna follow our hearts on this one. Some ginger. And a lot of cinnamon. Now, one thing that I am gonna do instead, since I don't have vanilla, is I'm gonna add some brown sugar in. And this is just gonna help with sweetness and give it that warm flavor. So I'm gonna do 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do is add in our apples. And then I am also going to add in pecans. Personal preference, you can add in whatever you want. I just like the nuttiness of the pecans in the flavor of the oatmeal. I think it really makes it taste even better. So that's what I'm gonna do, but you do whatever your preference is. So I'm just gonna kind of get these seasonings and spices mixed in as best as I can. Obviously the cinnamon and the nutmeg doesn't love to mix very well, but that's okay. Just gonna try my best to mix it all in. So now we're gonna go ahead and add in our apples. These are Kanzi apples. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I just chopped them up, and it's about 3 cups, I would say, of apples. Just be careful as you pour them in, because they will try to splash. Just gonna give those a little mix. Now the last time I made this, I cooked the oats on high, and I felt like they were fine, and then they kind of like started cooking really quick. So I'm gonna do low this time, and the recipe does call for high for 4 hours, low for 8 hours. So because we're using rolled oats instead of steel cut. I'm probably gonna do more like 6, but you just have to keep an eye on it to see once it's, you know, at the consistency that you like, in terms of how thick or how watery you prefer it or runny. So now that all of our apples and that goodness is mixed in, I am going to add some pecans and then we are good to get it started. Oh, I also want to add some seeds. So these are flax, chia, and hemp seeds. It's just a blend. And this is just for some added protein, and honestly the seeds will help to soak up some of the liquid. So I go pretty heavy on these because they don't take up a lot of room and they're really good for you. So I am doing a pretty generous helping of those. And then we're gonna do some of this. So I'm gonna do, honestly, this whole bag. There's really not that much left in here. So I'm just gonna pour the whole bag in. And our pot is officially full to the brim. So I'm just gonna mix in all the seeds, get everything well combined. It's gonna smell so good once it starts cooking. Okay, perfect. So we are gonna go ahead and turn this on low, let it sit. I'll end up letting you know how long it sat in total. I'll time it so that you know kind of for ratio purposes how long it should sit, but we're gonna let this do its thing and then come back when it is all finished. Okay, so it's been about 4.5 hours since we last spoke, and this is the final product of the oatmeal. The apples are tender. It's still a good amount of liquid in there. I know I added a little bit extra oats before we got it cooking, so I think that's helping it kind of be ready quicker, but I also don't want it to dry up too much and lose a lot of the liquid because I like it on the liquidy side. So I'm calling this done. You can honestly just turn it off whenever you prefer, um, based upon your preference of thickness and how runny you want it to be. But I think it looks awesome and I know it's going to be delicious. So just wanted to follow up and show you all how it turned out. Thanks so much for watching.